What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com, and I am back with another trending news because we're going to talk about three topics in the world of mixed martial arts over the next 15 minutes or so. First of all, I'm going to talk about a couple of topics from the weekend. First, I want to look at UFC 320 and Alex Pereira, what it meant for him to win that fight and what it means for him going forward. I want to talk a little bit about Paul Hughes and Usman Nurmagomedov and the officiating in general, kind of on that PFL card. And then I want to look ahead to the lightweight division in the UFC because we have a big lightweight main event this weekend. We have another one announced, and then we have Ilia Topuria out there as well, what's going to happen with him. So first of all, let's get to UFC 320 and let's talk about Alex Pereira because this was a historic fight, really. It's one of those fights that I think we look back on in years to come and think this was a real defining moment in the career of Alex Poatan Pereira because it moves him to 13-3. You know, at 38 years old of age, which you're kind of thinking like, okay, is there anything that special about that? You know, he's not had that many fights, and he's pretty old, and you know, maybe this is the last hurrah for a kind of a good fighter. But no, that'd be completely incorrect and missing every bit of substance to what has actually been in his career because it's just been unbelievable. Like, he made his UFC debut in 2021, which is still hard to believe, like November 2021 as well. So like that's just not even 4 years ago, which is incredible. And I think it's okay just to run through what happened here. So he fought Michailidis, Bruno Silva, then Sean Strickland, beat Israel Adesanya, lost Israel Adesanya. A lot of the talk around then was they should have done the trilogy, and I was saying the same thing 100%. But the way it was an issue, obviously, and he wanted to go up to 205, he did. Beat Jan Blachowicz, then beat Jamal Hill, then beat Yuri Prochazka, then beat Khalil Roundtree, lost to Magomed Ankalaev, and now has beaten Magomed Ankalaev again after a fight where he probably should have or could have won that last fight, and now he wins this fight just to put all doubt aside and does it so quickly. This has been a meteoric rise, like something we've never seen before in modern MMA. Like I think you could put something, maybe a Randy Couture, because he came to MMA a lot older and obviously a similar martial arts background. Like he had a combat sports background like Pereira did. Now the opposite sides of the combat sports, as we know. But like I think you have to look at people who've come into the sport, like McGregor obviously coming from Cage Warriors, or Ronda Rousey coming over from, obviously she did judo but she fought in Strikeforce and came over as well. You have to look at people like that to look at the rise as compared to Alex Pereira. It's not normal. And maybe he doesn't have the adulation or the notoriety as some of those people, but I think he deserves it. I think he's absolutely unbelievable. And to not only lose your title once, go up a weight class, win it back, but to lose it again in that weight class and then win it back against the same guy is absolutely unbelievable. And to roll back, I suppose, the opening point about 38 years of age, 13-3. I think for Pereira at this stage of his career, if he wants, and I think Dana White kind of acknowledged this as well, like if he wants something big or two big fights that are maybe not, Ulberg or the next guy up, I think for a guy at that age who hasn't had that many fights, who's built up a lot of money, obviously, because there's a lot of big fights, I think two big fights, two big paydays, I don't think anyone would begrudge him any of that. He has earned his stripes. He has become, one of those guys that you just have to tune in for. One of those guys that we will remember forever. And again, I said this win is one that we'll always remember. It absolutely is. And if it's followed up by something massive, it'll even be remembered more. Like, imagine if the tail end of Alex Pereira's career is winning back the title from, the quote-unquote wrestler. Now, Ankalaev is more than a wrestler, and, many would argue maybe not a wrestler. And then maybe going up the heavyweight and fighting a Ganner and Aspinall or fighting John Jones. It's one of the most storied careers in the history of the sport. It should go down as that. And I think right now we need to appreciate Alex Pereira so much because he is so brilliant. And like he seems like a great guy as well, which we don't normally get or ever get or sometimes get in mixed martial arts with these unbelievable fighters. So let's cherish Alex Pereira. Kudos to what he has done already. And if the next couple of fights are as big as they could be, God almighty, what could he go down as? I think he's gone already to be the second greatest UFC light heavyweight of all time. You know, obviously John Jones is going to be very hard to overtake, and at this age Pereira is not going to be able to do it, I don't think. But I think he's overtaken, say, someone like a Cormier or, you know, the likes of Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz. You could throw Gustafsson in there and other people as well. I think he's, you know, John Jones is obviously one, but I think he's number two right now. What a performer and what a fight at the weekend. The other amazing fight at the weekend, and I wanted to mention that first. It was an amazing fight between Paul Hughes and Usman Nurmagomedov. It really was. It was a fantastic fight. And, you know, a lot of the times when there's a contentious decision, we only talk about the contentious decision. No, I'm guilty of that probably more than most because everyone knows I love talking about I love talking about the judging and all of that. But it was a brilliant fight, a back and forth fight. You know, there was every single round was you know, on a knife edge, some clearer than others, as we know, but just a brilliant fight between two of the best lightweights in the world. And we're going to talk about more lightweights in a few minutes, but this really, really was. Look, I did the post show here on Sherdog. I did my Severe MMA podcast, and I don't think anyone who listened to them could, you know, get it two ways about my opinion. I think this was a bad decision. I think Minor and Ali, the two judges who scored it 5-0 and 4-1, is just beyond ridiculous. I think Darren Ransom scored a 3-2. You know, Darryl's a great judge, as is Brian Minor. You know, nothing against him. They're great guys as well. I disagree with Darryl Ransom's score. Look, I can understand Darryl's score without a shadow of a doubt, but I think this was a 3-2 fight to Paul Hughes. But I've gone over that a lot. Here's one thing I would say, and this is not necessarily a criticism, but like I think a lot of people have, you know, roared like, oh, this is you know, they're being paid off, and they want Usman to win. It was fixed, and everyone knew the score beforehand. I don't believe a word of that, right? Not one word of that. I think, you know, a lot people try to read into things and have conspiracy theories and all. I think. There's two things for me with this. Part of it is incompetence is a bit of a harsh word, but like I think people are not still at times not judging under the proper criteria, right? I think another part of it is that a big fight like this, you know, there's and I'm, you know, let's take away these three judges for a second, but like the amount of pressure a fight like this puts under people, some people have not felt that before. And the other thing I would say, and this is the biggest point, this is the point I want to make, and this is something that the PFL or the UFC or Cage Wars or whoever it might be can resolve. I think there is too much overworking of the officials. So if you look at, let's say, Brian Minor, right? He was the referee for Archie Colgan against JJ Wilson. You know, 3 hard rounds on the main card, right? And then he was the 5-round judge for Anderson versus Yashimordov, 5-round judge for Nurmagomedov versus Hughes. He judged 3 rounds of Zendeli versus Aldafrawi. And he judged a fight earlier in the night as well. Now, there's a couple of the fights that didn't go to a decision as well. He might have been on a couple more even. That is a lot of different work. And he judged the Kanan Loughran and Jack Hartwright fight as well, right? To do 2 5-round fights in a row, to have ref before that, to have done 2 3-round fights in a row before that. and other stuff on the night. I just think that's too much. Like, there's other people as well on this card. Jacob Montalvo, he was the referee for Yashimuradov and Anderson. He was the referee for Ken Lochran, Jack Cartwright. Plus, he judged on the card as well. He judged the Akhmadov fight. On this card, he judged the Al-Salawi fight. I think, look, if you're a small, if you're Cage Legacy here in Ireland, or even if you're like, let's say, a CFFC over in America, or even, Cage Warriors with maybe one of their, some of their smaller cards, something like that, and you don't have a massive, or a big budget even, if you're paying fighters 500 quid or something like that, just like, you can't be expected to get all the best judges in the world and, have 7 or 8 of them and some of the best referees. You can't, like, a lot of these places, they have 4 people, and they have one as a referee and there's 3 judges, and then one of the judges refs, and that guy that was reffing now judges. I wouldn't, look, needs must sometimes, but that's not the case here. This is Paul Hughes versus Usman Nurmagomedov. This is lightweight title on the line. This is Anderson versus Yashimuradov. This is the light heavyweight title on the line. If you're PFL, and this is the only criticism I'll give them, and it's not really a criticism because they had a lot of officials and things, but I think going forward, you need to do 2 things. You need to get the best officials in the world, right? And all of your officials need to be some of the best officials in the world. Now, that's easier said than done because there was a UFC, there was an Octagon, there was a Cage Warriors over the weekend, right? But you also, I firmly believe this, on the biggest card, you can have refereeing and judging on the same card. You can. Brian Minor shouldn't be judging and reffing on the same card. It's a different mindset. I've talked to officials about it before, and they do it an awful lot because they do it on the way up. But I firmly believe you need to be in a really, 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 really correct mindset to judge a fight. And judging 2 5-round fights in a row after reffing is not the way to do it, in my opinion. So I'll leave you with that, just food for thought. The third topic, the UFC lightweight division. This weekend, we have a very, very interesting fight between Charles Oliveira and Mateus Gamrot, obviously. We have a fight upcoming on November 22nd between Arman Tsarukyan and Dan Hooker. And then we have Ilia Topuria, the champion. We had Islam Makhachev obviously gone up to fight. He's fighting Jack Della Maddalena on the 15th of November, so maybe we'll know more after that. But we also have December 6th, UFC 323, with no fight on that yet. Marab trying to get on it. I would be shocked if Ilia Topuria isn't fighting on UFC 323. Now, who's it going to be? Just have a quick look at the UFC rankings here. Topuria, Makhachev, Tsarukyan, Holloway, Oliveira, Gaethje, Hooker, Pimblett, Gamrot. Right. Who's it going to be? So the 2 names on that, it's not going to be Makhachev, as we know. It's not going to be Tsarukyan, he's fighting. It's not going to be Max Holloway. It's not going to be Oliveira, he's fighting this weekend. Gaethje, could it be Gaethje? Hooker, not going to be Hooker, he's fighting. Pimblett, could it be Pimblett? Gamrot fighting this weekend, it's not going to be him. So that leaves us 2 names, Gaethje and Pimblett. We've heard Justin Gaethje said he's going to retire if he doesn't get the title shot, which he very well won't, definitely not. And then with Paddy Pimblett. Look, which is the better fight? Is it Topuria and Gaethje or Topuria and Pimblett? Me, definitely Topuria versus Gaethje. But which is the fight I'd make? Definitely Topuria versus Pimblett. It's going to be a bigger drawing card. It's your last ever pay-per-view. For 7 years anyway. There is a rivalry there. Paddy Pimblett's at a place where he has won some fights against people who maybe people wouldn't have expected him to beat, me included. He has earned his spot in the top 7 or 8 UFC lightweights in the world. And if you move him up any further, there is a large possibility that he loses and there's no longer the next guy in line or the next guy with a shot at getting a UFC title fight in the lightweight division. So now is the time. Now is the time. Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia Topuria. Make that fight. There's that rivalry. We all know Paddy bounced the hand sanitizer off him. Topuria has gone on to be, you know, the best fighter in the UFC. Looks absolutely unbelievable. You know, Paddy's a good fighter, but he is a bigger name and known all the time. You know, even here in Ireland, like, you know, people before, they used to ask you about McGregor, or years ago they'd ask you about, you know, John Jones, or further back to Chuck Liddell. Now it's Paddy Pimblett they ask you about. Paddy Pimblett is the guy now. And if Topuria was to beat him, and, you know, he would look so good in that fight, I think, as well. You're going to make Topuria an even bigger name. And the best fighter you have being an even bigger name is absolutely brilliant for the UFC. So I think that's what they should do. Oliveira and Gamrot this weekend. I think the UFC have actually match-made these fights very well. Obviously, it was supposed to be Fiziev. Gamrot, I think, is a very winnable fight for Oliveira. Hooker's a very winnable fight for Saryukin. So you're leading yourself up to having those two guys plus Gaethje, plus Pimblett, and you have a lot of options there in the lightweight division. So for the UFC, it's very, very good for them. All right, those are my 3 topics for this week. Let me know in the comment section below if there's anything you want me to talk about in the next couple of weeks. Let me know your opinions on all 3 of those things. Do you think Pereira is the second best light heavyweight ever? Do you think that Paul Hughes won that fight? And who do you think will be next in line for the lightweight title? Let me know those 3 things in the comment section below. But until next time, my name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.